always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone and to make things fair. But the problem is our communities are divided. They're completely divided. And I talk about this.
What a retard. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It reminds me of that one scene in American Horror Story when the girl is gonna go into the haunted house and the little mentally disabled girl says, "You're gonna regret it." You're gonna regret that, Democrats. You're gonna regret. You're gonna regret it. You're gonna regret opening that door. Wake up, America. If you thought the radical left was done after the Minneapolis riots, you haven't been listening to the revolutionaries in the Lone Star State. Texas Democrat Gene Wu, a man who fled communism only to bring its tactics to the Texas House, has officially called for an insurgency. He's telling his followers to, quote, scream in the faces of ICE agents and not give them a moment of peace. He says the white oppressor is done and the new majority is taking over. This isn't a political debate. This is an initiation of aggression. And while Wu triggers the mob, the technocrats at the World Economic Forum are triggering your immune system. We are exposing Matthew Liao's plot to use Lone Star ticks to literally engineer a meat allergy into your blood. They cannot win at the ballot box, so they're coming for your steak. It's biological coercion versus national sovereignty. We're going to break it down in a 30-minute barn burner opening. Oh yes, there will be blood, but it won't be drunk by these politics. But don't despair, because the rest of the world is finally waking up. We are joined today in the second hour by John Miltimore to discuss why the silent majority is becoming the loudest majority from Chile to the highlands. We're looking at the death of the open border consensus and why the non-aggression principle isn't a suicide pact when your culture is under siege. Look out for the second hour. And if you want a blueprint for victory, look to the east. Japan's Iron Lady, Sanae Takaichi, just won a historic record-breaking 316-seat supermajority. She's doubling the military, slashing taxes, and sushifying the agitators. That's a real word. That's a real word now. Can you say it 3 times fast? Sushification. We're going to show you viral videos of belligerent foreigners being rolled up like California rolls and shipped out. Joining us live from Tokyo at 7:30 a.m. to explain how Japan is reclaiming its destiny is the one and only Yoko Ishii will be on the show live today. Yoko-san, our Yokohama mama. Finally, we're bringing it back home to Missouri. The income tax is on the chopping block and the property tax revolt is reaching a fever pitch. We're joined by Tony Lavasco. We've been waiting a long time for this one. Tony's a busy man. He's running to reclaim his seat and take a chainsaw to the state bureaucracy. We're going to help Tony from ending asset forfeiture to legalizing natural medicines. We're showing you how the Show Me State is leading the Liberty Revolution. Yes, 25 degrees Fahrenheit at Jefferson City now. What is it going to be, like 60 degrees here? Oh, we're warming up good. We're going to have a nice warm show for you today. Hope you're ready to wake up, America. It is a packed show. It is a fiery show. And if you want to fuel the fight, head to forlibertyshop.com. Grab the coffee that powers this movement. I've got a little bit of Cafe Voltaire there, and this one is our mushroom blend. But we got all sorts at forlibertyshop.com. The Jeffersonian Java is the #1 best-selling product of all time, and it's for good reason. It's delicious. You'll want to sit on your shelf forever. So head to forlibertyshop.com. Every purchase that you make during the live show is going to help to unlock the bonus content. I got a lot of content, so let's get to it. The Texas terrorist in a tailored suit. Wake up, America. If you thought that the chaos in Minneapolis was an accident, you haven't been listening to the radicals in the Texas House. Take a listen.
We need to be out there. We need to not only support and remember the name of Miss Good, but we need to remember why she died. She died because she was a proud American. She was a proud American who understood her rights and was free to exercise it.
and they took her life for it. And instead of our response being silence, we should be louder than ever. We should scream in their faces. We should not give them a moment of peace until they give us our nation back.
Nobody's screaming in my face, homo. I will beat your ass. A man born in communist China, Gene Wu, who now sits in a seat of power in Austin, has officially gone full revolutionary. He's telling his followers to, quote, scream in the faces of ICE agents. He says we shouldn't give them a moment of peace. And if you think that that is limited to members of the federal law enforcement, oh no, they'll do it to you. They do it to each other. They're so stupid. They're beating each other up in the streets, confusing each other for ICE officers. This is a direct incitement to aggression against the men and women protecting our sovereignty. Wu isn't just attacking policy, he's attacking the people. He says white people are the oppressors and that the non-white majority should just take over the country. He isn't even hiding the ball anymore. He's actively glorifying Renee Good, the martyr of the anti-ICE mob, who found out the hard way that stalking federal agents in a 2-ton SUV has deadly consequences. As the joke goes, I guess she's a good communist now. Womp womp. But Wu is still breathing, still posting, and still pushing for the total demolition of the social contract, the tick-borne totalitarianism. So while the street agitators are screaming in our faces, the elites in Davos are figuring out how to attack your very biology. Enter Matthew Liao, the WEF's favorite bioethicist from NYU. Take a listen. Or don't, because it's not queued up. It's here somewhere. Give me a sec. Throw me off my rhythm, boys. Yeah, where is the WEF clip, damn it? Oh, here we go. Sorry.
So I'll give 2 examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, you know, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, you know, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big.
You know, you do know what would happen to you if, you know, we have a 2-tiered justice system in the world, right? The elites rule over us and have these kinds of conversations openly. I guess I prefer that they say it openly now. But imagine, you know, that congressman, he says, get in their face, get in these federal agents and scream in their face, right? They do what they advocate for what they think they can get away with. But don't forget, there is a different system of rules, a different system of laws, which governs people like you and Mr. Liao. Because if you were to get in Mr. Liao's face, I guarantee you that you'd get shot. You'd be dead pretty damn fast. You'd be convicted. They would bury you in a storm of bad press, and your life would be over. If you got in that man's face and you screamed in his face, and let me tell you, somebody who deserves to get their face screamed into right there is a man like that. Even suggesting doing something like that, that is biological warfare. That is a man advocating for a war crime, one that he cannot control. You get in his face and scream in it as long as there's no cops around. All right, you just look over your shoulder for the 5-0, and don't worry, AP isn't going to rat you out anytime soon. What did Maxine Waters say? You see them out in public, and you get a crowd going. This man isn't a mad scientist. He is a globalist asset. Liao has openly advocated for human engineering to stop climate change. And what is the big solution? He wants to literally trigger a meat allergy in the general population. He's talking about using Lone Star ticks to sensitize you to alpha-gal, a sugar in red meat. So the next time you bite into a steak, you go into anaphylactic shock. He calls it beneficial blood-sucking. He says we can't just be trusted with our own willpower, so the state should just engineer our immune systems to reject the very food that has sustained human civilization for 3 million years. They want to turn you into a sick, weak vegetarian serf who is physically incapable of rebelling because you're too busy searching for an EpiPen after a hamburger. I can't tell you how many times in the hoots and hollers of Southwest Missouri I have spoken to people who have alpha-gal, and we whisper to ourselves in our backhands, you know, I kind of think that this shit might have been made in a Chinese lab because, and I won't go too far into the tinfoil hat. I even have my own conspiracy theories. Think about who it targets. Think about who that disease targets, right? The enemy of people like Liao and his Chinese communist buddies, right? Who are the people who eat red meat in America? White male Christian conservatives, red-blooded Budweiser drinking, NASCAR watching, Bad Bunny boycotting, TP USA half-time Super Bowl watching, Kid Rock rocking. Now, for my libertarian friends who are still clinging to the non-aggression principle like a security blanket, wake up. The nap is not a suicide pact. When a sitting lawmaker incites mobs to scream in the faces of ICE, that's an initiation of aggression. When a globalist bioethicist plots to infect the population with a chronic allergy to meat, that is an initiation of aggression. Libertarian nationalism recognizes that a nation of voluntary association of people who agreed not to be engineered by mad scientists or replaced by foreign agitators. We need unorthodox, skillful, and forceful counterattacks. We don't need dialogue with people who want to infect us with ticks. We need the kind of leadership that understands sometimes the only way to deal with a cultural Marxist is to show them the view from a very high altitude. Maybe a helicopter ride is the only remedy for a man who wants to turn American citizens into lab rats. Oh, was that rhetoric inflammatory? Well, then how is yours supposed to be interpreted? Gene Wu's statements about oppressors and majorities is the final mask-off moment for the Texas Democrats. They aren't even pretending to care about fitting in or American values. They openly are advocating for a hostile takeover based on racial grievance. They want to import the third world to vote for the first world's destruction. And they're protecting the agitators like Renee Good because she was the frontline soldier, the useful idiot for their insurgency. They want to stigmatize the founding stock of this country as oppressors while they loot our treasury and dismantle the border. It is a coordinated effort to ensure that the America your forefathers built is completely unrecognizable by 2030. We are being gaslit by men who fled communism, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, only to bring the same tactics of land confiscation and cultural revolution to the Lone Star states. Think about the synergy here. The border is open, allowing the fraud rings and the agitators to pour in, while the bioethicists are working on the internal border of your own bloodstream. They want to regulate what you eat, how you think, and how many children you're allowed to have. Liao even suggests engineering humans to be shorter so we use fewer resources. I'm not kidding. Look this up. They want to turn us into a hobbit species of cognitively enhanced, meat-allergic, cat-eyed serfs. I'm not making this up. He literally suggests giving humans cat eyes to save on electricity. These are the people advising the organizations that set your energy policy and your health standards. They see you as livestock, and Gene Wu is the ranch hand trying to whip you into submission. Hey, Django, Django. Hey, Django, Django. Meanwhile, kids are getting kicked off Roblox for initiating ICE raids on the platform. Get him, kids. Oh, Django, Django. So what is the remedy, guys? What is the remedy? The remedy is a cold, hard reality check. We reject the totalitarian tick trap. We reject the racist replacement rhetoric of Gene Wu. Little sneak preview for what's coming. Reality check. We reject the totalitarian tick trap. We reject the racist replacement rhetoric. We stand for a libertarian nationalism that protects the individual by protecting the borders of the body and of the nation. No one has the right to engineer your immune system. No one has the right to incite mobs against law enforcement acting in their lawful duty. If the state won't prosecute these actors, then the people, we must personally disassociate, personally defy, and politically destroy these movements at the ballot box and beyond. It's time to stop playing by the old rules of polite dissent. The other side is bringing ticks and tear gas. It's time we brought the heat. Wake up, America. The revolution is here, and it's hungry for red meat. Coming up after the break, live from Tokyo, it's going to be Yoko Ishii. Live from Japan. Don't go away. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Face another day. Django, now you're
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways?
When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a redcoat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors, and trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com. Look, not all t-shirts are created equal. Some just sit there. Others start conversations. The ones at forlibertyshop.com, they raise eyebrows, win arguments, and occasionally get you banned from PTA meetings. Whether you're repping freedom, mocking tyrants, or just making the left squirm, we've got the gear that says what you're thinking. Loud, proud, unapologetic. Grab yours today at forlibertyshop.com because your shirt should speak louder than your neighbor's bumper sticker. Legend has it, back in 1773, a band of angry, overtaxed patriots stormed a British ship, found the king's favorite tea, and said, "This would taste better without the tyranny." Then they tossed it overboard. Fast forward to today. That revolutionary spirit lives on in Boston Harbor Black, the boldest brew in the For Libert tea lineup. It's dark, it's smooth, it's unapologetically American, just like the folks who drink it. Whether you're sweetening it up on the front porch or drinking it straight like a Minuteman before battle, this isn't tea for royalty, it's tea for rebels. No fake flavors, no corporate slogans, just a cold glass of Don't Tread on Me in liquid form. So skip the woke iced tea aisle and stock up on Boston Harbor Black at forlibertyshop.com. Because when the heat's rising, the least you can do is drink like a patriot. Picture this. It's 1776. Thomas Jefferson is hunched over his desk at Monticello, ink-stained fingers, writing the most radical document in human history. Do you really think he was sipping Starbucks? No. He was drinking something bold, something black, something brewed strong enough to fuel a revolution. That's the spirit behind Founding Flavors, our signature line of liberty-fueled coffee. No soy froth, no climate guilt, no corporate slogans. Just real coffee, inspired by the men who wrote freedom into existence. Every cup is a quiet protest. Against mediocrity, against tyranny, against bad coffee. So this morning, skip the globalist brew. Grab something worthy of a free man's sunrise. Founding Flavors. now brewing at forlibertyshop.com. Imagine bringing George Washington back to life. Just to explain that in 2025, men can get pregnant, waving an American flag might offend someone, and our government is $34 trillion in debt. But that's not all, George. We have drag queen story hour for toddlers. Pronouns are mandatory. And Harvard can't define woman. Oh. And we send billions to Ukraine but can't fix potholes in Ohio. You know, just normal modern empire stuff. I'm sure he'd be totally cool with it. Right after he finishes reloading. He didn't cross the Delaware for this nonsense. But you can carry on the fight. Patriots, listen up. The sun's out, the shades are on, and the Gulf of America is wide open for business. This summer, don't show up to the beach looking like a landlocked liberal. Gear up with the Gulf of America collection. Towels, tumblers, shirts, hats, fanny packs, because nothing says freedom like cannonballing into liberty with style. Whether you're grilling burgers,
While the West is paralyzed by a lack of civilizational confidence, Japan has sent a thunderous message to the rest of the world. Wake up, America. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. Don't forget to click the like button. And if today's your first time watching the show, click the follow button as well. We'd love to have you be a regular guest 5 days a week. On Sunday, February the 8th, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, the Iron Lady of the East, secured a historic 2/3 supermajority in a snap parliamentary election. Her Liberal Democratic Party alone seized a record-breaking 316 seats, effectively crushing the left-leaning opposition and giving her a total mandate to pursue a Japan First agenda. Wow. We're talking about a massive conservative shift, doubling defense spending, slashing consumption taxes on food, and taking the gloves off against illegal residents. But it isn't just the policy that's going viral, it's the enforcement. Video clips are exploding across the internet showing Japanese police using a specialized burrito wrap technique. Take a look. We've got it pulled up on your screen right now. They're literally rolling belligerent foreigners into blue mats like human sushi rolls to neutralize them without the de-escalation theater we see in American cities. It is the ultimate find out moment for the globalist agitator. And I think it's a blueprint for every nation that wants to reclaim its streets. Joining me now to break down this landslide victory and the rebirth of Japanese nationalism is a woman who has been a leading voice for liberty and sovereignty in Tokyo for years. She's a fearless commentator, a friend of the show, and a true patriot of the rising sun. Please welcome back to Wake Up America, Yoko Ishii. Yoko-san.
Hello, Sting-san.
Good morning from here and good evening to you. Thank you for joining us so late in the evening there in your country. So tell us, what does this mean? Yoko Takaichi, she wins all of these seats. Why did the Japanese people choose to give her a total and complete mandate?
I believe that, first of all, like before all the difficult policies and everything, Sanae Takaichi is the first ever female prime minister of Japan in history. So it's a historical thing. The leftists will not acknowledge her or, admit that she is the first female prime minister, but she is. And it's such a impactful thing that we are all surprised by, and we just want to cheer for her and be there for her and vote for this historical moment, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Yes. Also,
go ahead.
Sorry. Also, the liberal parties, they just dug their own hole. So like Takaichi didn't really have to do much, so it just happened.
Yeah, well, you love to see it. These sushi rolls, Yoko-san. I've got the video pulled up right now. The audience can see these videos of police wrapping foreigners in blue mats. They are viral hits in the United States. Is this sushification a common police tactic? And what is the public's reaction to seeing lawbreakers handled this way, especially foreigners?
Actually, it's not viral here in Japan, so I think I saw it but once or so, but I'm not actually sure. And the thing is, Japanese police do carry guns, but they cannot shoot. So, and they do have like a stick to hit you with, but they can't even do that. So I guess they got creative.
It's amazing that what happens in Japan is viral in the United States, but not in your home country. I think that it sort of speaks to the American frustration with our unwelcome gaijin, as you call them, Yoko-san. And I wonder if part of the reason for the resounding victory of Takaichi isn't connected to Japanese frustration with belligerent tourists. We've seen streamers coming into Japanese cities committing crimes because they know nothing about Japanese culture. They're disrespecting Japan. They're disrespecting Japanese culture and doing it in your cities. Japan is this election is part of this, that it shows Japanese people are not going to put up with this.
Mm-hmm. So it is it was a part of the election, but we didn't really talk about it this time. We did it last time with the House of Councilors election, but this time it was more about choosing Takaichi as our prime minister. And as for foreigners in Japan, we are sick and tired of over-tourism. And also, as you mentioned, there are people who do not follow our rules and so on. We are actually culturally tolerant, even the conservatives, but we cannot allow those who cannot, live under our rules and everything. So Takaichi noticed how to tackle it. Like we are kind of open internationally, but they need to obey our rules, and she knows how to do it, so we support her for that.
Yoko-san, it's so adorable the way that you are so magnanimous towards your enemies, and we really admire that. We really admire that in you, but maybe don't save the same level of kindness for China, because isn't part of this election victory the fact that Takaichi is such a China hawk?
I believe so. And it was symbolic because the guy, the politician who asked her the question about Taiwan in the parliament, he got removed. He lost his election and he's no longer a politician. And she, won by landslide. So it's pretty symbolic. And everyone knows here that like how the conversation went in the parliament and also with China. China was really doing all the negative things towards Japan, and Takaichi was standing firm. And we all saw that. And she won by landslide. So I think that we are happy to have a strong leader against China. And in addition, I have to mention that about 90% of Japanese nationals living in Japan are not fond of China. Polls show that, and vice versa. Chinese people do not like us either. So, of course, we want a strong leader.
Americans have only sort of recently woken, or at least come awake to the challenges that Chinese communism brings to our country, which also affects your country. So talk to us a little bit about the relationship between your prime minister, Sanae Takaichi, and Donald Trump. How does the Japanese public view the chemistry between Trump and Takaichi?
We are happy to see them doing well. I don't know. I think they are somewhat similar because they want to be strong against the, expansionism and so on. I mean, in the sense of Chinese expansionism. And and I think the special bond that they have, of course, comes from Shinzo Abe too. They have that in common. And so from there, I believe that they share the common sense and common grounds, and it's probably helping them. And also Japan and the US before Donald Trump too, our alliance is special, and we are one of the rare countries in the world who can share these common values together. So it's helping. And also Takaichi is such a charming, happy person who also works hard, and she does trust Trump, and Trump does trust Takaichi enough to send her a message during the election campaign, like he wrote on X or Truth Social, I'm not sure, maybe both, but he kindly sent a message, and Takaichi received it with a happy tone. And so I believe that our relationship is really, really like strong.
Yoko, are Japanese conservatives aware of the level of meme status that former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has achieved amongst the MAGA movement in the United States? Because especially after the attempted assassination on President Trump a couple of years ago, Shinzo Abe was credited spiritually with whispering into Trump's ear to turn his head at the last moment. And from there has sparked a million memes. So are Japanese conservatives aware of how Shinzo Abe has achieved like sort of, I guess you might say like godlike status now that he has passed away by political assassination? And did that political assassination, do you think that it in some ways has led to this rise of Japanese nationalism, that perhaps that assassination backfired and this has been the result, a total vindication of Abe?
Yes, like Shinzo Abe's level, like it was leveled up. And by that assassination, definitely, like it became a historical event, and it shocked us all too. But yeah, Shinzo Abe, though, like even before the assassination, his friendship with Trump was crazy, like in a good way. And one of the best, like my most favorite pictures of them is they are having a taking a selfie together in a golf field, and they're so happy together. And that spread a lot in Japan, and feeding the koi together, and really such good memories.
When he dropped the koi, the entire thing.
Yes, we all know that. So at least like ex-users in Japan and on the conservative side, we all love those moments. So I wish that he was here. Yeah.
Yes, we certainly do miss him. I've got the video pulled up right now as we're speaking of Trump feeding the koi there with Abe, and in a moment he's about to do the very famous, instead of just tossing it out gently and kindly, he seems to get tired of it quickly perhaps, and then he just takes the box and turns it over. But that's our president right there. He does what he likes. There it is. Okay, so Takaichi, she wants to suspend the consumption tax on food to help working families. So is she rebranding the LDP as the party of the people rather than the party of the elites? Is that what this is? A little bit of Japanese populism?
I believe the LDP has been the party for the people. And that is why it's good and bad, because the party is so big that they include conservative people, non-political people, and liberal people even. As for the economy, Takaichi just wants to change or have the reform of this whole system. So, for example, we were only able to make the budget for like each year, but now she wants to make a multiple years of budget and so on. Like she's changing the premise so that all the silly power struggles inside a country disappear and do things more practically. So it's a good move.
Let's talk about the collapse of the left real quick. I just want to reset. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Yoko Ishii, also known as Random Yoko. You can follow her on X. We're talking a little bit about the historic election victory of the Iron Lady of Japan, Sanae Takaichi. Yoko-san, I'd like to discuss the collapse of the left in Japan. The left-leaning opposition alliance saw their seats slashed in half. So has the woke or globalist narrative in Japan officially reached its expiration date, would you say?
I would say so. They're so old-fashioned. The Japanese society is leaning towards on the right side, or in my opinion, it's just coming back to the normal. But leftists in Japan are just like, they are old-fashioned and they're not even woke or globalist. They are still living in the mood of the 70s or so. They are still living in the past, and it's long overdue. So.
Talk to us about the potential for the rewriting of the Japanese Constitution, because this could be a momentous and historic moment that's coming up if the LDP decides to rewrite the Constitution. What are people saying in Japan about what changes this might mean going forward?
We want to have like the actual military forces. It's only defense forces, and there are limits of what we can do. And we all see the threats of China, coming on to take Taiwan and also Senkaku Islands of Japan. But realistically speaking, though, even though Sanae Takaichi's LDP this time won by landslide, it's only in the House of Representatives, like the lower house. So upper house remains like they don't have the majority, but they need the 2/3 of the House of Councillors, like upper house. So what that means is that we would have to wait for 5 years and a half more, or get the cooperation from the opposition parties. But as for our identity, though, we believe that we should change our constitution depending on when we are living, like accordingly to the generation.
So what do you think is the number one lesson that American nationalists should take away from Japan's success in maintaining its culture while still remaining a first world high-tech global powerhouse?
Bring back common sense.
It just sounds so easy. It sounds common sense isn't common, though, is it?
No, not in America. When I look at America, everything is so crazy. I can't believe that you're keeping your sanity. I'm here for you, though.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate that. And Japan has been an ally of such great affection between the United States. The way that Japan has relations with the United States, it's so much better than so many of our other allies, where from Europe, all we hear from Europe is how we're fat, we're stupid. We drive. Yeah, they talk about us being, eating cheeseburgers and obese, and yet their entire socialist healthcare schemes, they're all paid for by the fact that the American military in rockets keep them safe at night. So there's an agitation that the United States has with Europe that it does not have with Japan. Now, part of this, Yoko-san, has been fueled, part of the love for Japanese culture has been fueled by some in the United States on the left, maybe these people who go to the anime and cons and they cosplay. Mm-hmm. We call them, they've been known as weebs. You've probably heard the term, right? These, I'm so glad that when I visited Japan to take some karate and eat the food, my friend who calls everyone weebs is like, you get a pass, Austin, because you're you have a normal hobby related to Japan. But the thing is this, Yoko-san, the leftists in America, they're not happy about this. They're not mentioning, like you said, Takaichi, the Iron Lady of Japan, because she really is a sort of Margaret Thatcher-esque figure in Japan. I mean, what does it mean to see you as a woman, to see a woman becoming the first prime minister of Japan and be a right-leaning conservative nationalist? I mean, it truly is of epic proportions for you, is it not?
Yes, like I'm realizing that females, like males, it actually doesn't matter, that we can all do it if we want to. And she's a hardworking person, and I sometimes forget that she's a female.
Yeah, well, I always joke, Yoko-san, that I think that the first woman who will be elected the American president will probably be a right-leaning, Thatcher-esque conservative, because Americans, they just want that style of governance. It sounds like Japanese do too. Yoko-san, we're coming up on the end of our interview, but I want to make sure that I covered everything that you think is important. Is there anything that you think we missed, or perhaps something else you'd like to bring up or even plug before we let you go today?
Well, about Takaichi, she's coming to the U.S. in March, so please enjoy her.
We will.
While she stays there.
We will. Where can people follow your work online?
Oh, I'm mostly active on X, Mark Random Yoko. So I hope that you guys will follow me there.
Okay, at Random Yoko. Yoko-san, we're so grateful. And it's very late there, so thank you for being so generous with your time. We appreciate it. We hope you'll come back and join us again very soon.
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone and to make things fair. But the problem is our communities are divided. They're completely.
Talk about psychopath. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. This is the For Liberty Network. We have got a fifth show launching on the For Liberty Network. If you can believe it, I've spent the last 3 years of my life building this show, the Wake Up America show, building another members-only show, Freedom Arcade, building Culturama with Daniela Pensac, building Liberty Tonight with Brian Piotr, and now a new show that I've been building behind the scenes launches March 3rd, Cafecito Libre. So here's what's going to happen. I'm assembling a team. I am putting together a network, a powerful network that speaks for liberty. It speaks for libertarian nationalism. And we're going to connect South American libertarianism, successful, winning libertarianism. Think of Javier Milei and his Libertad Avanza. They actually won elections in Argentina. Argentina is not some third world hellhole. We're talking about the 8th largest country in the world by landmass. We're talking about a country very similar to the United States in many ways. As a matter of fact, in the early 1900s, before fascist socialists took over the country and destroyed it, it was a very powerful first world country that competed with the United States economically, and then fell apart after the Perones destroyed Argentina. Well, Javier Milei's Libertad Avanza was a successful libertarian movement. And how did they do it? Well, they had to build a coalition. They built a coalition with nationalists. They built a libertarian nationalist coalition. Guess who's trying to do it here in the United States? Yeah, you're looking at them. I'm stepping up. What about you? Are you supporting the For Liberty Network? Are you checking out our other shows on the network like Culturama and Liberty Tonight? Are you throwing them Rumble Rants every once in a while? Are you stepping up to the game at an absolute minimum, helping us to fund the revolution here in the United States, to keep the ideas of 1776 alive by donating 1776 to the For Liberty Network? Make a Rumble Rant now if you haven't, or go to forlibertyshop.com. Buy a box of our delicious Founding Flavors coffee. Fuel the revolution. If you want the revolution to continue, step up today and support the Wake Up America show and all this incredible work that we're doing, this reporting that we're doing live from Tokyo, Japan, talking about the historic election, the Iron Lady of Japan. We're making history on this show. What you see on the Wake Up America show, you will hear on other shows maybe later today or tomorrow, and you will hear on the legacy media a week from now, if they even talk about it, because we are breaking ground here. The Wake Up America show is not like other shows. This is special. What we were doing here is unique. And if you're already part of the community, let me just say thank you. And if you're not, you should join us, and you should...
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise. Please.
Can you suck it?
Excuse me? That wasn't very nice. Head over to forlibertyshop.com. We're about to go to a commercial break. If you don't want to watch commercials, you don't have to. Just unlock the bonus content on the show by making Rumble Rant donations or by going to forlibertyshop.com and making purchases during the live show. You are contributing to the pool where if we raise $100, that unlocks phase 1 of the bonus content. You want to go phase 1 of the rocket launch, our mini documentary. You can watch that instead of commercials. Phase 2, if we raise $150, that pool of money, that unlocks phase 2, which means we play a game show. I turn into Bob Barker and we play The Price is Right. Well, or some other fun mini game on our phone. We compete against each other live on the show for real prizes. It's a total blast. So how do we unlock that bonus content, phase 2? Just give a Rumble Rant, support the Wake Up America show, all the good work that me and Steffi and Brad and Colton and hopefully many others are doing on the Wake Up America show's For Liberty Network. Support the revolution. Join us in Boston May 1st and 2nd when you're at forlibertyshop.com. Get your tickets. Join the libertarian nationalist revolution. Let's make history. Mongoose87, what do you say? Don't forget, click the like button. Don't go away. We'll be right back with John Miltimore to talk about the rise of nationalism in the world. Can we make it a libertarian nationalism, or will it all go wrong? Like World War I and World War II. There won't be World War III. But what about World War Me? It's Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Over the last several years, something fundamental has shifted in global politics. In country after country, voters are turning away from globalist promises and towards national identity, borders, and self-government. And this is showing up in election results, party realignments, and public debates that were once considered taboo. Japan is a perfect example. We just got done talking to Yoko Ishii, live from Tokyo, Japan, on the show, who talked about the historic election results For Sanae Takaichi, the Iron Lady of Japan, recent election results all across the world are strengthening conservative and nationalist forces, reopening discussions about immigration, national defense, and even changes to Japan's post-war constitution. At the same time, we are seeing similar patterns across Europe, from Italy to France to Scandinavia, where populist and nationalist movements are gaining ground by promising order, cohesion, and national sovereignty. So it's not just about culture wars or personality politics. In my opinion, it's a reaction to decades of elite failure, economic dislocation, and a growing sense that ordinary people have lost control over their own nations. To help us understand this moment and what it means going forward, I'm joined by a very not hungover man, John Miltimore, with Monday for Miltimore. Hey, how you doing, John?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Yeah, I stayed up a little late watching that Super Bowl game, but no, I'm ready to talk about nationalism.
No, everybody wants to hear about the Super Bowl, I'm sure. No, we'll let other people cover that story. There are a lot of people who will cover that better than us.
It was kind of a dull game anyway, right?
I wouldn't know. I was playing with my kids, doing anything but that. Don't hate me. John, when you look at Japan's recent election results in context, do you see this as part of the same nationalist wave that we've seen in Europe and the US, or do you think Japan represents a different kind of political shift?
It's a difficult question to answer. I don't know a heck of a lot about, Japanese politics. I think, whenever we talk about these things, we got to define our terms a little bit. What do we mean by nationalism? Is it the same thing as patriotism? George Orwell wrote something, close to, call it 80, 90 years ago about this. I think patriotism is a natural thing. I think when you get into nationalism, it can be a version of collectivism. What you described, I don't have any problem with this. Like we borders matter, national sovereignty matters. I think there has been a trend of globalism. What do we mean by globalism? There's things about globalism that are very good. Trading globally is a wonderful thing. When you have small cabals that are meddling in geopolitics and trying to leverage nations, like that's a more dangerous thing. And I think that's what we're witnessing is sort of a counterbalance against that. And there are some, the World Economic Forum, some of these things that we saw in recent years, they were playing politics in a way that was, I think, detrimental to citizens. And citizens saw this and, they've responded. Is Japan's situation like that? I really don't know. I don't know the person that they elected. But globally, I think there's some positive things happening, but we need to be careful. Like anybody that's studied history can look at the 20th century and see that nationalism can get out of control.
It can, but you talked about the definition of words, and I think it's important to recognize when you talk about words like nationalism or globalism, it matters how you define that. That makes it probably important for us to step in and to define it for ourselves rather than to allow our enemies to define it, which is why, John, I am advocating very strenuously for libertarian nationalism, which I think is not in conflict with any of the concepts that you have stated, especially your definition of globalism. I agree with that as well. Globalization, right? International free trade, something that I'm very much for. Globalism, like the internationalization of law via the United Nations or the WEF, I'm very opposed to, and that's not in conflict with your or my values. But we should step up and be the ones to define it, John, especially because I really feel as if things like the non-aggression principle are probably insufficient for us to deal with the kinds of threats that we're getting from those supranational organizations. Like the next quote that I'm going to play from you from an NYU professor, Matthew Liao, who is advocating for the initiation of force against you and I. Take a listen to this clip, John. First, I'll have to turn on your audio because I didn't do that before the interview like I normally do. So I'm very quickly clicking on the share button and then going to that menu screen so that while I'm doing this live, so opening up your computer audio so you can now hear the clip. Here we go.
I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. but people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems.
John, my question for you related to this is, would it violate the non-aggression principle for us to send men to take him up in a helicopter over a big cliff and just not throw him out of it, but just give him a good look down 200 or 300 feet and then return him safely to the earth? Would that be a violation of the non-aggression principle and or a good idea?
I think it would. No, like it's a crazy idea that he's putting out there. Like, let's be honest. I don't think injecting people with enzymes to make them repellent to meat is a sane thing to suggest. But people come up with bad ideas all the time. You have elites that do it. Then you have, the everyday guy has bad ideas as well. We don't throw people out of planes or give them a good look, for their bad ideas. But yeah, we got to remember, I think the good thing is a guy like that, he doesn't have any power over us. He can come up with some sort of loony idea and think it makes sense and sounds scientific. But he has no power to make decisions, and that's a good thing. We need to make sure that people like that don't have any power to make decisions in our lives. And I think in the United States today, we don't have like NYU professors that can even if they do go over to some of these to Davos and meet some powerful people, he can't start making decisions for us about what we eat.
Okay, John, it's a little milk toast, but I'll allow it just because I don't want to get interrogated when the upcoming Kamala Harris.
Am I wrong though, Austin? Like, am I wrong? Can he do anything?
You are wrong. You are wrong. Yeah, you are wrong. These people do have power, John. You're deeply wrong about this, and I wish that you would change, because I think that kind of feckless attitude towards these elites who are threatening us, very clearly pointing gun, like what that is the equivalent of pointing a loaded gun at us, right? When you make those are threats, John. They're not.
You think that is the equivalent of pointing a loaded gun at someone?
I think he's threatening. I think that's a threat. That's after we saw what happened with COVID-19 and what they did in other countries. They want to bring here to the United States, and I think that if we don't escalate rhetoric against these types of people, if we don't return, like here's Jean Wu, here's Congresswoman Jean Wu. I want you to listen to this. Real quickly, this is Democrat Congressman Jean Wu, born in China, says, you and I are oppressors, John. Take a listen to this. This is an elected representative of Texas.
I always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone, and to make things fair. But the problem is our communities are divided. They're completely divided.
Yeah, that man has power. That man has power. He's advocating for an ethno-nationalism, John, in a nation he was not born in, right? And yet who he is privy to representing. Who does he represent, right? In Austin, Texas. And then here's another clip from him where he is advocating for aggression against law enforcement officers in their lawful duties, acting in their lawful duties.
Was a proud American.
Talking about Renee Good.
She was a proud American who understood her rights and was free to exercise it. And they took her life for it. And instead of our response being silence, we should be louder than ever. We should scream in their faces. We should not give them a moment of peace until they give us our nation back.
Okay, so if that's a Class C felony he's advocating for in Texas, if I was with my family and someone screamed in my face, John, I would break their face. Like that's That's an advocation for the initiation of aggression against us, John, just like that professor was. And then, yes, that professor does have
I think
power.
these are very different examples, Sauce. I think you would concede that.
Yeah, they are different examples, but they all exist in the same wheelhouse. They are all advocating for the initiation of aggression, John. They are all advocating for violating all of our naps. Can you not agree with that?
The clips you've just played are troubling, especially when you have a lawmaker that is talking in this way. Yeah, if you're asking if I support those things, I obviously don't.
No, that's not what I'm asking, John. Be honest. I'm saying, you asked if I said you were wrong about your attitude towards these people, and yes, I'm telling you, you are wrong.
We're talking about an NYU professor with a crazy idea about getting people off meat. It's different when we're talking about lawmakers.
He's agreeing with Wormtongue. Yeah, he's agreeing with Wormtongue, and it would have been much better off if King Theoden had slayed him instead of allowing him to run off to Saruman, John.
Are we talking about, I mean, is that analogy something you really believe that we should be I mean, last I heard, or I believed, Austin, you did believe in free speech. People can have bad ideas, and we don't lop off their heads for saying stupid things.
Well, why can't we scream in their faces, at least? At a minimum, why are we not allowed to scream in their faces? Because I guarantee if you did to this NYU professor...
Do you think that will help anything?
Yeah, I do, actually, John. I think that, what is it supposed to mean when a country fears their government? It's better that a government fears their people than people fear their government, right? There's liberty. What do you think? Yes, make tyrants afraid. We should make them afraid. When Maxine Waters says, you see these people in public, you get a crowd going. Yeah, I do think we should probably make them afraid.
You think we should be telling our people the same thing?
Yeah, I think we ought to tell them.
I say our people. I don't even, who are we talking about?
If you see Maxine Waters or AOC in public, you get a crowd going. And then they will start to finally see. When they actually have fear, John, when they are actually afraid again, they will shut up about their tyrannical schemes, and they won't even have a chance to invade them because they're afraid of us, John. If your enemies aren't afraid of you, then what are you even doing in life?
Yeah, I think we kind of saw, in the 20th century where that ended. When in 1920s, 1930s, Germany,
the good guys won,
these factions taking, street brawls, brown shirts, all these things where
we let them get away with it too long, didn't we? We let Hitler get away with it too long. We shouldn't have waited until Pearl Harbor to get involved, should we, John? We should have attacked Hitler earlier, shouldn't we?
No,
FDR was right, wasn't he?
Austin, I don't really know what you're trying to achieve with this, but
that at some point, John, you can't, if you don't set any red lines, then you get walked all over. And what I'm suggesting is that your attitude is one of saying, yeah, we'll just let them walk all over us, right? You don't think politicians should be afraid? You don't think politicians should be worried?
I think if we start to use these tactics where we're going to intimidate people, bully people, it is going to be ruinous, not just for ourselves, but for the entire country.
No, we should bully politicians.
I think that's not a model I would be advising anyone.
We should definitely be bullied. We should be, at a minimum, we should be cyberbullying politicians. AOC should be afraid to post anything without the little, only people who are tagged can reply to this. Like Hillary Clinton doesn't allow, you know why Hillary Clinton doesn't allow comments on her posts, social posts? Because she's afraid.
Because she'll get roasted.
Yeah, cyberbully them.
Yeah, no, I mean, even the word, I think you probably have as big an aversion to bullies as I do. I've never been able to tolerate bullies. And I don't think we can do it to politicians either. That doesn't mean we can't have our voices heard. That doesn't mean we can't call them. We can't, say we're angry about something that, but when you start to, there's a lot of really bad behavior out there online. You know this. And when we're trying to intimidate people, that's not something I support. I don't think I think that's a road to nowhere.
I mean, the problem with that is, John, is that in Weimar, Germany, you got killed first. You were the first ones to die. The libertarians are the first ones to get sent to the camps for that reason, right? Our forefathers tarred and feathered politicians. They drove tax collectors out. You ever heard of the Pine Tree riots? from New Hampshire before the Boston Tea Party?
I'm familiar.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's like at some point in time, after a long train of abuses and usurpations, do you just think it hasn't gotten to that point yet, John, that diplomacy is still...
I don't want to see a revolution. I think that was,
even... we want to see it. Right? I'm not saying I want to see it. They're the ones advocating for a revolution. That Gene Wu is saying... We want a demographic takeover of this nation to go against our oppressors. You're the oppressor, John. You.
Yeah, I think civil society, manners, these are things that we should be trying to restore. And we should be people who are not, when they are violating things like this, we should be, holding them accountable for that. It's not to get louder and meaner and more aggressive in response. I just don't, I don't think that is a way to advance anything.
Okay. Well, that's, we do allow the Amish and the Quakers and the Shakers and the candlestick makers to live in the United States peacefully in their communities. And they don't even, some pay income taxes, John, but you gotta understand that, like, if there is not a response to bullies, if you let the bully continue to do what they do without any kind of proportionate response, then you're not, it's, can you even fight back against it? John, how do you fight back against tyranny?
With ideas, right? Like when people have these ideas that are this toxic, people need to understand that, yes, they are the aggressors. When you're talking about, using chemicals or enzymes to make people, like, there's something inherently aggressive about the collectivist ideology, about socialism, about communism. People need to understand that, and we need to communicate those ideas to people. It's hard today. We live in this mass media. It's a ecosystem. Getting your message out to people is a challenge, and maybe it's even fruitless. Like I sometimes I feel that way when you're trying to get people to understand just how violent the leftist ideology is. But I think it's harder in some ways when you see people on the right adopting some of the same tactics.
But John, you just aren't seeing it, that you're blackpilling. You feel like it's too late, right? That's connected to your lack of willingness to fight back. The reason why you feel that, why you feel disenfranchised to some extent, is because you have no way to fight back against these people. Your way of fighting back is fight them with ideas. Yeah, you got to have ideas, but the First Amendment needs the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment backs up the First Amendment. You want Thomas Paine without George Washington.
I don't think I do. I think why do I explain that to me?
Sivi pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Where's the bayonet tip that defends American libertarianism? Where's the men with guns on the walls? The night watchman state, for God's sakes. At some point in time, if libertarians don't actively, if you want to fight the war of ideas, define nationalism for the world, define globalism from the world. If you're going to fight that fight, John, you got to take. You can't let your enemies choose these words for us. We can't let the economic nationalist, Bannonite, populist, schizoid, anti-Jew hating, conspiratard cabal define what nationalism is, meaning anti-free trade, meaning anti-liberty, meaning anti-classical liberalism to a large extent. They're calling for our heads. Thomas Massey and Rand Paul are on the defense. They're running for the hills, while Donald Trump and
Massey's
the MAGA
on
forces,
the defense from Trump more than anyone else.
Yeah, for sure. But for sure, because there's no bayonet. There's no, I see libertarians love people who don't get anything done for liberty, who have never passed laws that have advanced liberty, because if they ever did get a victory, it would be a dirty victory. It would be one that would make them impure. And Trump and his MAGA forces are off dunking the ball. Now, Massey might get reelected, but he fails to see the battlefield for what it is, or for what we're fighting, what we're struggling with right now. And that's why our libertarian representatives aren't moving the balls down the field, because they fail to know what time it is, John. And I think that you're falling prey to that thinking too. And I'm telling you,
when you're talking about war, what you just did is you compared the British Empire, the most powerful empire in the world, to an NYU professor and some loudmouth
in the World Economic Forum, yes.
Like one of those, situations calls for a war response and one does not. Like you talking about bringing war to people who have opinions that you don't like is to me not sensible. I think
it's not just opinions that I don't like, John. You have admitted very clearly that that advocacy for biological warfare is itself advocacy for an act of aggression. At what, if I
aggression's inherent in socialism because it's based on the idea that you are entitled to the property of other people. So yes, it's an aggressive ideology.
Violence is an inherent
but to say
part
that people
of socialism.
that hold that ideology are guilty of perpetuating violence.
Yes.
Is that something you believe?
Yes, I do. I believe that people who advocate for socialism and for communism and forced collectivization, I believe that those people are advocating for violence. Yes, I do. And whether that violence is coming through a vote, which I believe is absolutely an analog to violence, voting is force because government is force. I think the people who are advocating for forced collectivization are advocacy for violence. Yes, I do. You disagree?
My question was, are they committing violence?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think a soft form of violence. Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. It's kind of like gaslighting.
I think
it's kind of like when someone gaslights you, right? If someone like starts to like mentally, psychotically mess with you in that way, I think that you're not punching anyone in the face, but if you're like altering their mental state by lying to them and manipulating them, yeah, I think gaslighting is a form of violence. Don't you?
No, I don't think treating.
You don't think it's an act of aggression?
I don't think we should be treating ideas as violence, even bad ideas.
Actual literal gaslighting, you do not believe is an act of an initiation of aggression.
What do you mean by gaslighting?
I'm talking about literal gaslighting. So like the picture, like the story definition from the movie, gaslighting, the guy's got a wife, he convinces her she's crazy by lowering the gas lights. She thinks that the lights are lowered and he lies to her and says it's not, she's going crazy, and so she goes crazy. You don't think that's
I'm familiar with the movie. I just want to make sure you weren't talking about gaslighting in a more literal way. I think gaslighting is pernicious, but I don't think it's violent.
Yeah,
messing with people's minds is not violent.
I think it is. I think when you're advocating for the forced collectivization of society.
This is sort of, to me, it's reminiscent of how the left tortures language and they manipulate words.
It should. I hope it is.
Yeah. But that's not what we should be doing with language. We should be trying to find the words that best describe something.
Wrong. We should define the words. We should dominate and define the words. We should demand a definition of words that adheres to the morality of the founding of the United States. We should demand that nationalism be a libertarian nationalism that is unique in the world, in the United States, centered on the American Constitution, centered around classical liberalism, and we should reject any and all advocacy for anything that would overthrow that experiment on any level that we can.
That is music to my ears when you mentioned that about the Constitution, but I think the Constitution includes what we talked about, that First Amendment, and that is something that we have to extend to people who have bad ideas. They can present those bad ideas.
Not to people outside the United States. American citizens get the privilege. We pay for it. We pay trillions of dollars a year for it, and we're going to guard it jealously, John. I hope you'll change your mind. I think you'll be less black-pilled about it. I think the war's already here.
I wouldn't describe myself as black-pilled. I just know it is a struggle to get to people to appreciate the freedom they have. That we see freedom in a retreat today on I think in the left for a long time it's been an issue. The right, we're seeing something changing that I'm not comfortable with, where the right is more using power in ways that I think for decades they would have said, well, this isn't the proper use of government. Limited government is not something that we're seeing on the right today even discussed. We're not seeing things like checks and balances on power. Look at all this executive power being thrown around.
If you were Julius Caesar, would you have crossed the Rubicon?
If I was Julius Caesar.
If you were Julius Caesar, would you have crossed the Rubicon or would you have surrendered your army?
I would have been a Cicero. So that's the answer.
If you were Julius Caesar, your back was to the wall. They were going to arrest you, probably execute you. You can cross the Rubicon and live, or you can surrender and die. John, which is it for you?
I would have been a Cicero.
No. If you were Julius, John, be intellectually honest here, my friend. You know the history. Tell me the truth. If you were Julius,
would I use my army?
Would you surrender your army and die?
The republic?
Would you surrender your army and die? Is the only question at hand, or would you cross the Rubicon and live?
I probably wouldn't be surrendering my army if they're going to be arresting me and executing me.
There we go, John. That's all I ask for, and that's what this whole conversation has been about. John, where can people read The Take by John Miltimore?
The Take by John Miltimore on Substack. Go check out my content. I got a nice piece on economics there, Austin. You should read it on Castaway, the movie.
I love it. I'm fighting for that economics. I'm just fighting it in a different way. Thank you for all you do for liberty, John, and for putting up with my very belligerent attitude. Have a good day.
Have a good one, AP.
Bye-bye. Banzai! Half answer there, Grizz Cheese. Those who know, know. And if you don't know, now you know, nigga. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Fighting to define nationalism, fighting to define globalism. I'm Austin Peterson, and this is a libertarian nationalist show. Would you surrender your army or would you cross the Rubicon? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them below. Tony Lavasco is going to cross the Rubicon. He's running for office here in the state of Missouri. Let's get local with it. We're halfway to unlocking the bonus content. Keep those Rumble rants coming. Somebody donated a Bitcoin earlier. I think it was C. Songaroth. What's up, man? It's good to see you again. Grateful to have you here, brother. Click that like button, click the follow button, and if we hit $100 raised by the end of the show, you'll unlock the bonus content. Support the libertarian nationalist movement to take over our government and leave everyone alone. It's the Wake Up America show, and that's on the For Liberty Network. Shoot out.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot redheaded?
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. I'm so thankful to have all of our friends of Liberty joining us here on the Wake Up America show. Click the follow button, click the like button. We'll be grateful to have you join us Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central. The Wake Up America show streams live from Jefferson City, Missouri, and sometimes we turn to local and state issues. The Missouri capital in Jefferson City is currently a battleground for the very definition of limited government. So Governor Mike Kehoe is pushing a bold moonshot to completely eliminate the state income tax. The legislature is grappling with a surge of constitutional amendments ranging from property tax caps to protecting the initiative petition process from foreign adversaries. Missourians are also facing a tort tax of over $1,200 a year due to predatory lawsuits. So while local property assessments in counties like Jackson have spiraled into total chaos, at the center of this fight is a growing faction of lawmakers who believe that the government doesn't need to be managed, it needs to be downsized. The fate of school choice, asset forfeiture reform, and even the legalization of natural medicines all hang in the balance this session. The stakes aren't about line items in a budget, they're about whether Missouri will lead the nation in liberty or follow the debt-ridden path of its neighbors. Joining me now, a man who spent his career in the trenches of the Missouri House fighting for taxpayers and individual rights. He is a former vice chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, a staunch defender of the Second Amendment. He's currently running to reclaim a seat in the government. That's Tony Lavasco. Help Tony. Can we help Tony win? Hey, Tony. How you doing, brother?
Good morning, Austin.
Tony, you've been a consistent voice for downsizing government. Governor Kehoe wants to zero out the state income tax by 2031. How do we ensure that doesn't just lead to a massive hike in regressive sales taxes that hit the working class?
So I don't necessarily have a problem with sales taxes. I think that consumption-based taxes, if you have to have a tax, are the best way to go because at least you have some control over how much money you're giving the government, whereas something that simply taxes you for existing, like having a property tax or an income tax, which taxes your productivity and your time, those are clearly not nearly as good in so much as any taxes can be good. That being said, I do have some concerns about the specific proposal that we're seeing. Of course, it's pretty early in the session, so we don't know exactly what's going to come through the amendment process. But it looks to be that the plan initially is to put forth to the voters a question that would basically authorize the General Assembly to expand the base of the current sales tax regime. Currently, you cannot assess a sales tax on services. They are wanting to expand out to allow taxes on things like labor or whatnot, which is, of course, a large amount of transactions. The trick there is that it's apparently going to be earmarked to only offset the income tax. And so the idea is that we're going to be transitioning away from an income tax to a sales tax, which in concept, I support. My concern, of course, is that the way it's written and ultimately the kind of trust me nature of the General Assembly is kind of relying on the voters to trust them, that ultimately they are going to implement this reduction of income tax down the line. The most recent version of the amendment that I've seen does have a little bit more assurances that there actually will be a deadline to that, and it's not going to just be when they get to it. So I think we're moving in the right direction in that conversation. But ultimately, if I'm going to support something like that at the ballot box, and if I'm going to encourage others to support it, I want to see some assurances that the income tax is in fact going away, and quickly, not in 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Tony. Thank you. And we certainly hope that you're going to win your election so that you can advocate for those kinds of policies. Now, property taxes are the number one issue for homeowners in St. Charles and Jackson County out in your neighborhood. You sponsored bills in the past to prohibit foreclosures on principal residences for delinquent taxes. So why is this homestead protection controversial at all?
Well, it's funny, that actual provision that I proposed was not controversial. It didn't go anywhere ultimately because the speaker at the time never referred it, so it never got a hearing. But I didn't actually encounter anyone that I talked to at the Capitol that thought that was a bad idea. The worst pushback I got was some folks that said, oh, well, we obviously have to make sure that we have a mechanism to collect those taxes. We can't have people just refusing to pay because they feel like we can never get it from them. And of course, my bill did indicate that, we could garnish wages or otherwise find ways of getting that. But in my mind, it is absolutely abhorrent that we're going to kick someone out of their home because they're not paying their taxes. That's just not right. Forgetting the fact that property taxes themselves are pretty immoral, and we're basically asking people to pay rent to the government for the privilege of having property. That's insane. But beyond that, I think just as a practical matter, it's not useful if we're wanting to encourage more homeownership, if we're wanting to encourage more consistency in communities, certainly. Having people actually stay in town rather than, just go ahead and move to the neighboring community as soon as the taxes start getting high. We need to have some assurances that we're going to actually reward people for those investments. And I think part of that is leaving them alone. And quite frankly, the simplest way to do that is give them assurances that, hey, if you fall into hard times and you get a little bit behind, we're not making you homeless over this.
I think this is really smart the way you've structured this, Tony, because it's very thoughtful, especially towards where the current attitude of the country is, at least from the discussions online, where a lot of people feel as if there's something of an intergenerational warfare of rich boomers having a sort of a transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class younger generations to the boomer generation, because you say that this would prohibit foreclosures on principal residences for delinquent taxes. And essentially what that means is that if they have more than one home, then that's an exception, right? So if you're talking about wealthy people here, but also you've advocated for a garnishing of wages to a certain extent. So if there is some sort of Ebenezer Scrooge type who does only have a principal residence, you still could go after them for the taxes in their actual financial way, but you couldn't kick them out of a house, which would, of course, cover all of the people that you were really trying to protect, which are people who want to be able to live and die in peace on the homes or the family farm where they grew up, and be able to, live their life and their lifestyle freely in the state of Missouri, as I think they deserve. But when I talk about things like means testing on this show, Tony, people get really upset, especially when I'm talking about things like Social Security, right? So if we're talking about means testing for Social Security, people get very angry with me. I paid into Social Security. Property tax is, of course, not structured like Social Security. However, I think this bill sort of speaks to the angst that a lot of people of our generation have towards the boomer generation from what feels like a transfer of wealth from ourselves, at least on the federal level, to the older generation, which I'm sure you probably considered, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I think given that we have a very difficulty, especially in my district out in Wentzville, apartments are incredibly expensive. Homes are even more expensive, and property taxes have basically doubled in the last decade. It's absolutely insane, the growth that we've got, which is good from a generic, community standpoint, but it's terrible from an affordability standpoint. And if we're going to tell people that they have a hope to actually achieve the American dream, well, we can't, hook on that hope a little asterisk that says, oh, by the way, if you ever lose your job or get sick, like, well, you're on your bum. We actually have to have some ability for people to make it by hard times, because there's going to be hard times coming. It's the reality of it.
I'm speaking to Tony Lavasco. Help Tony, helptony.com. Tony Lavasco, longtime friend of the show, longtime advocate for limited government, a hero for liberty in the Show Me State. He wants to show me the liberty by winning the election for state rep. In which district, Tony?
Be District 63, which is primarily Wentzville.
Nice. Now, you made national headlines, Tony, for saying looters deserve to be shot, but not by the government. As we watch the chaos in places like Minneapolis, how do we balance the non-aggression principle with the need for a state that actually secures its borders and its streets?
That's a broad question, Austin. That's tough. Mm-hmm. I think we start by focusing on the things that I think people are worried about. I don't think the average American is particularly worried about the 6-year-old kid that overstayed a visa because their parents didn't do the paperwork. They care about the criminals that are breaking into their cars, breaking into their houses, assaulting people. They care about the fact that we have a system of laws that is being ignored, and that there's a general consensus that the left just doesn't care about enforcing the things that theoretically we all agreed to. I know that's not how it really works, social contract and all that, but the reality is people are in a position where they're not feeling confident that their government is actually going to enforce the laws that we've got. And once you start thinking that, you start pushing the boundaries yourself, right? Folks that wouldn't normally be committing crimes or otherwise harming their neighbors might be a little bit more tempted to push the envelope. And that's not good. And I think that regardless of what you feel the national policy on immigration ought to be, we can all agree that if we have a rule in place now, we should enforce it, at least in so much as we can. And I think the point of what the government is currently trying to do is well-meaning.
Okay.
I do have concerns about how they're doing it. I think as a practical matter, they're kind of cutting off their nose to spite their face in a lot of respects, especially with the midterms coming. So I think that being strategic is important. But to those folks who say that, immigration policy is messed up, and so we should just not enforce it until we figure it out, I mean, that's stupid. That's not realistic.
Tony, looters deserve to be shot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of tough to shoot the people who are the biggest looters, which are the ones that work for government. But, if they'd stop multiplying, maybe we'd have a shot.
Tony, you've been a lead advocate for psilocybin and natural medicine in Missouri. Is the GOP finally coming around to the idea that the war on drugs is a failed experiment in government control? Or are they looking at states like Oregon and going, maybe we went too far too fast, and maybe Missouri shouldn't have legalized marijuana the way that we legalized marijuana? What do you think, Tony?
So I started nodding a little too quickly there. I do think that the GOP has come around quite a bit to psilocybin and natural medicines, especially as it relates to treating PTSD with veterans. I think that's a huge issue for a lot of folks. So I absolutely think that we're going to see a medicinal program for that pass in the next probably year or two, quite frankly. Richard West from an adjoining district out in New Meli, he's filing a bill that was very similar to what I carried when I was in the House. That's expected to move this year. I don't know how it'll fare through the Senate, but I think there is a companion coming. So I would expect to see Missouri a much more welcoming place to veterans and folks that need these treatments here in the coming years. Is the GOP changing its attitude on drugs in general? No, I don't think there's a whole lot of movement on that. And I think you're right. You look at Oregon, you look at Washington, and you look at liberal states who have attempted to decriminalize drugs and the failure in their implementation. And it's very tempting to say, well, this is not worth doing. It's failed policy. But I guess I caution people to look at actually how they've implemented these policies and realize that, yeah, if you do it like the stupid liberal states are doing it, it's going to fail. Doesn't mean you can't do it right. There's absolutely a way that we can give people the freedom to make their own choices with their bodies while still protecting children and making sure that we don't have junkies on the street corner.
It
can be done. I think we just need the ambition to actually do it right.
I think that's really wise, Tony, and I get really excited about you being a state rep again because you're a smart libertarian. You're not a dumb libertarian, right? You know how to advocate for ideas in a way that doesn't forget the responsibility part of the equation, because I feel like too many people who believe what we believe, they focus very heavily on liberty, but they don't focus at all on the responsibility aspect of that. And I think that if we don't advocate for a level of accountability while we advocate for legalization of these things, because I agree with you, Tony, I believe adults should be able to do with what they please with their bodies, that we own our lives. And that's the individualist attitude that comes with me. But there have to be some kind of enforcement mechanisms for people who are not like, me and you, Tony, able to go have fun in a, Las Vegas weekend bender and come back, healthier for it, because we just don't have addictive personalities. We're going to come back with a blackjack addiction. But let's talk about education. Missouri is seeing a massive push for the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act. Do you worry, Tony, that universal school choice in Missouri is eventually going to lead to state regulation of private and home schools, or is the competition worth the risk?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that concern. Obviously, anytime the government touches anything, they tend to want to regulate it. That being said, they can do that now. If government wants to crush you, they're going to do it. Like, obviously, there's plenty of examples of that. And so I'm unpersuaded that because the government might down the line do a thing, well, we can't stop them from doing a bad thing now. And that's ultimately what the school choice debate is about. It's about, the concerns of folks that if we, allow the government anywhere near homeschooling or private schools, they're just going to somehow destroy it, which, hey, I get it. Like, we don't want to be regulating people, what they're teaching their kids in their living room. And I have no intention of allowing that to happen. That being said, the government school system is so enormous, so powerful, and so damaging. The idea that we should sit back and just let it continue with basically no competition because we're afraid of a what if, I don't think that's practical. They've already won. It's not going to get a whole lot worse. The reality is people need options. They need to find a way to be able to get their kids out of that system. And I think going back to the previous argument about people just having autonomy in their lives, if you got choices with their kids and you're not tied into one particular system in which you are being taxed for it, whether you want to use it or not, I think that gives you more options to live your life as you so choose. And that's what I'm all about.
Tony, I love it. That's the message I want to hear in the Show Me State. That's what Missouri Republicans should aspire to be like. Let's talk about asset forfeiture. So you've pushed to reform how police can seize property without a conviction. Why are so many of your fellow Republicans hesitant to close the federal loophole that lets departments keep the cash?
Yeah, that's one thing that I think the Republican Party in general could use some work on. I think we're very good at protecting individual rights when it comes to things that make the headlines. You talk about guns, you talk about the right to life, which are of course very important issues. But when it comes to recognizing that law enforcement are, quite frankly, nothing more than a group of government employees that we authorize to use force, they've got a tough job. I wouldn't want it. I didn't sign up for that. But the reality is they're government workers. They're nothing special compared to the guy who works at the DMV, other than the fact that they've got a job that puts themselves in harm's way. And that means they should be held accountable in the same way. If you bring your car to be registered, you pay your sales tax at the DMV, and the guy behind the desk just steals your money and doesn't credit your account, you expect some consequences from that. And at the very least, you expect to get your money back or have your account credited, right? And yet, for whatever reason, we've decided that law enforcement in general, whether that be at the state level or the federal level, somehow gets a pass for being, regulated and overseen by the people. And this is ultimately the simplest way that we can kind of strike back.
Well, let's talk about that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Just to put it simple, if you commit a crime and we can prove it in court and you're convicted beyond a reasonable doubt, yeah, you should probably lose the stuff that you bought as a result of that crime. That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, we don't know if you've committed a crime and we just think you might have, I don't think we get to take your stuff and just be like, well, you prove it to us that you're innocent. And that's the current system, and that needs to change.
I agree, Tony. Protect the people. Now, you kind of talk about a shakedown here. Now, Jefferson City's newest op-ed columnist at the Jefferson City News Tribune has by the way, me. Thank you. Has a new column coming out about this House Bill 1695 to modify motor vehicle safety inspections. Yes. So is this truly a safety issue, Tony? We don't want cars driving on the roads, the government roads that are dangerous, or is it a $12 shakedown of Missouri drivers? What say you, Tony?
Well, I would say it's worse than a $12 shakedown. $12 in the scheme of government shakedowns is pretty small. Mm-hmm. The issue is the repairs that you have to do to your car in order to pass inspection, which may or may not even be meaningful. You get an inconsistent experience depending on where you take it. Some places, barely even glance at it and they give you a pass. And other ones, if you got the slightest chip on your paint, they're deciding that's a safety issue. We don't have a whole lot of consistency there. And a lot of folks, especially when you start, talking about people in hard times, like, well, they're not going to get their plates renewed because they can't afford to fix that car, and they're just trying to get by to the next, next paycheck. You look at other states, and we are by far in the minority. There's only like 12 or 13 other states that require vehicle inspections, so it's not as if the bulk of the country is doing it this way. And if you look at those states and you compare them to the states that don't have inspections, well, guess what? You don't find any real difference statistically in the number of accidents that are resulting of cars that are just blowing up in the middle of the highway. The vast majority of things that are, safety issues are things that, if something were to go wrong in the, wrong type moment, yes, could be a problem. But you're not talking about engines exploding and careening a vehicle at 80 miles an hour at your, kid's school bus. The reality is the data is very clear. Inspections do basically nothing. And what I'd love to see the legislature go a little bit further and withdraw from the National Emissions Inspection Program as well. I know a lot of your listeners are throughout the country and throughout the state of Missouri. But if you don't live in an urban area or an area adjacent, you don't have to have your car tested for emissions. But guess what? If you're in St. Louis, St. Charles, and I think Franklin County, every time you get your plates done, you got to have your car inspected for emissions. Which, forgetting the fact that that's all kind of garbage to begin with, it doesn't actually even test your car for emissions anymore. Now they just plug a thing into the computer, and the computer tells them whether you pass or not. Jeez. Like, they can't even bother to hook up your tailpipe. So that needs to go too.
That needs to go out the tailpipe. Hey, Tony, you've served on the Downsizing State Government Committee. If you could take a chainsaw, if you had Javier Milei's chainsaw, and you could take it to just one state agency on day one, which agency in Missouri is the biggest drain on our liberty?
Ooh. See, that's tough because the biggest drain on our wallet is probably the Department of Education, with some, and its various offshoots. As far as our liberty, that's a little bit tougher. I would say low-hanging fruit, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's actually conservation. They're pretty popular, but they have a good amount of power.
No, Tony, don't say that. Wait until after the primary. Wait until after the primary, Tony. Scratch that. We're not live.
Here's the thing. They've got a dedicated stream of income, so they're not running out of money. What I would like to see is them actually be regulated by the General Assembly. The fact that they can come on your property and claim that they are, looking for game that is sick or any of that nonsense, the chronic wasting disease, they're on that kick now. Again, just like any other government entity, they ought to be held to be account, and private property rights matter. And as much as I want to see that our forests and streams are taken care of and that they continue to do a good job maintaining those things, I do think they need to leave the farmers alone. They need to leave the people alone that just have a chunk of land that they want to leave, natural. And, if we can get them to go back to their charter of protecting the actual wildlife, I think that'd be great.
Tony, by Missouri polling and public opinion, what is the most popular agency of Missouri government?
Ooh, the most popular. I'm not sure there's been polls on that, or at least not that I've seen.
Tony, it's the Department of Conservation.
They're up there. They got to be top three. If I were going to guess.
Number one, Tony. Okay, forget it. We're not talking about that. Don't clip that, Brad. Okay, Tony, let's talk about the shape of the race. You're running in a primary. So talk to us about the shape of your primary. Do you have a strong challenger? What about the general election? What does your race look like right now?
So filing opens the 24th, so we got a couple more weeks before we've got a little bit more clear picture. At the moment, I do not have a declared primary challenger. It's just me on the Republican side. The Democrat that has announced, and he announced quite a while ago, is the chair of the St. Charles County Democrat Central Committee. So he's got some clout. And I do have a pretty solid red district, so he'll have a pretty uphill battle against me. But, I'm not intending to take anything lightly. So we'll see how it goes.
Are the Republicans threatening any challenges against you in the primary? Is there any word of challenging Tony Lovasco? And if so, why would they?
So I haven't received any direct threats, although, as you know, that it rarely works that way. Usually you find out down the line, people are talking behind your back a lot more than they will to your face. Why people will go after me? I mean, they've gone after me before, and quite frankly, the reason is I am not quiet. Whether or not you like what I'm pushing for, you generally know what I'm doing, and I'm usually pretty decisive about it. So you tend to be on my side or not.
That's why we like you, Tony. That's why we want to help Tony. So how do we help Tony if we want to help Tony? Tony?
Well, you have it right there. It's helptony.com.
Helptony.com. Oh, did I do that? HelpTony.com. Full disclosure, I am a donor, and I went to HelpTony.com and I made a donation to Tony because, well, I'm a shill for liberty. So get over it. It's a free country, and I'm allowed free speech, and I own a network where I propagate the ideas that I believe in, and Tony Lavasco certainly represents those ideas. Tony, anything that we missed today, anything that you want to share with our audience before we let you go?
Well, I guess I would share that it is an election year, and that means that the General Assembly will probably do virtually nothing because they tend to get very shy in election years to do bold things. And so it's early enough in session. We can kind of still turn that around. So if you have a relationship with your rep or senator, drop them a note and tell them you'd like them to do something useful this year because you're watching.
And we should go to helptony.com, right, Tony?
That is correct. HelpTony.com.
HelpTony.com. I just don't want people to forget the website's HelpTony.com. Thank you, Tony. We appreciate you for all you do for liberty. We hope you have a wonderful day, and bless your heart in the primary, sir. We support you.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate it.
You have a wonderful day, Tony. Help Tony. HelpTony.com.
All right, let's get right to it.
Here at South County High School in Lorton, these students are hard at work making pieces, recreating sculptures like the ones you would see in ancient Western Africa.
So you have step shows, you have a lot of things to have cultural sensibilities.
Talking about things like Black Joy and historically Black colleges and universities. It's all part of the new AP African American Studies pilot class.
My goal is to give them holistic history, as much information as possible, and then hopefully they'll take that information and make the world a better place.
I felt like there was like a gap in my knowledge about African history, so I thought this class would be a great way to deepen my knowledge.
The class launched after months of drama nationwide. In April 2022, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the Stop Woke Act, limiting how racism can be taught in schools. Then in January 2023, the Florida Department of Education banned AP African American Studies, saying it violates state law and lacks educational value. A month later, the College Board stripped down the curriculum, removing lessons on critical race theory, the queer experience, Black feminism, and Black Lives Matter. Then Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin asked for a review of the class to see if it violates his ban on divisive concepts in school. The State Department of Education announced last month it found no issues with the class.
I think sometimes the criticism might be because people assume the class is political in nature, but it's really not. We've learned a lot about different things, and we look at it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not political nature at all. You've unlocked the bonus content. Thank you, Andy. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the humidity of Tokyo to the halls of Jefferson City, and the theme remains the same. Civilization is a choice. On one hand, you have the Gene Woos of the world, men who sit in the comfort of American legislative seats while inciting mobs to scream in the faces of the very people keeping us safe. They want to tear down the front door of this nation, while the technocrats at the WEF try to hack the front door of your own biology with their tick-borne meat allergy plots. They want you weak, they want you allergic, and they want you submissive to a new majority that views your history as an oppression to be erased. But on the other hand, you have the Japanese Iron Lady, Sanae Takaichi. And the people of Dundee, Scotland, they are proving that you don't have to accept the decline. When Takaichi wins a 316-seat landslide, it's because she knows that a nation without culture is just a parking lot for globalist interests. When the Japanese police sushify a belligerent agitator, they aren't being mean, they are being sovereign. They're saying that if you come into our home and spit on the rug, you don't get a moment of peace, you get a one-way ticket out. You didn't even remove your shoes at the door. This is Japan. As John Miltimore and I discussed, the rise of nationalism is not about hate, it's about the right to exist. The non-aggression principle is the gold standard of human interaction, but it is not a suicide pact for the innocent. When the state fails to protect you, when the state actively engineers your body or your streets for chaos, the libertarian nationalist stands up. We choose the party of the parent over the party of the agitator. We choose the freedom of the dinner table over the beneficial blood-sucking of the WEF. Missouri's showing you the way home, killing the income tax ending the asset forfeiture shakedowns, and reclaiming the show me spirit of independence. The choice is yours, America. Will you be rolled over by the radicals, or will you be the ones doing the sushification and the rolling? If you believe in the mission, if you want to fuel the fight for biological and border sovereignty, head over to forlibertyshop.com. Grab your coffee, join the community at forlibertynetwork.com, and never apologize for wanting a country that looks like home. Truth is out there, the receipts are on the table, and the good communists are finally silent. I'm Austin Peterson. Stay free, stay focused, and for the love of liberty, wake up, America.
Federal law from 1968 makes it a felony, punishable by up to 15 years in prison, for anyone who is an unlawful user of a controlled substance, including marijuana, to possess or receive a firearm. This statute disarms millions of Americans who use cannabis, even in states where it is legal and even when those users pose no apparent threat to public safety. In 2024, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in United States v. Connolly that the ban is unconstitutional when it rests solely on habitual or occasional drug use. Now the Supreme Court will hear United States v. Hemani in early March 2026, where the Trump administration seeks to reverse that ruling and reinstate the prosecution of Ali Hemani, a Texas resident who admitted to using marijuana several times a week while owning a gun. An unusual coalition has filed briefs urging the justices to uphold the Fifth Circuit's decision. The National Rifle Association, which until recently avoided taking a firm position on this issue, now argues that the law violates the Second Amendment as applied to a cannabis user in a state where recreational marijuana remains illegal. Joining them are drug policy groups such as the Drug Policy Alliance and NORML, along with other gun rights organizations, think tanks, and the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. Their arguments converge on the idea that a blanket prohibition on gun possession by drug users cannot survive scrutiny. The Supreme Court's 2022 Bruin decision requires that modern gun restrictions be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. The government primarily points to old laws that treated habitual drunkards as vagrants who could be confined to workhouses or civilly committed, but critics say the analogy fails. Those measures were not gun laws, they required judicial findings and due process before any deprivation occurred, and they punished actual danger rather than status alone. The government's logic, opponents note, would justify disarming anyone historically jailed for minor offenses, including broad and absurd vagrancy categories that covered jugglers, palm readers, or people who neglected their callings. Earlier laws punishing intoxicated gun handling were narrow. They targeted active impairment in public settings, not sober possession at home. No historical precedent exists for categorically disarming people simply because they sometimes consume intoxicants. Founding-era militias routinely drank, and prominent Americans owned firearms while using drugs like opium or cocaine that are now controlled substances. Prescription medications that can impair as much as or more than cannabis do not trigger gun bans today, yet marijuana users face permanent disarmament, even in states that permit its use. The statute is also unconstitutionally vague because it fails to define how recent, frequent, or connected to firearm possession the drug use must be to qualify someone as an unlawful user. Courts demand a temporal nexus but not simultaneous use, leaving ordinary people without fair notice of when lawful conduct becomes a felony. This ambiguity invites arbitrary enforcement and can exacerbate racial disparities. Some briefs argue the law punishes status rather than conduct, violating the Eighth Amendment principle from Robinson versus California that criminal penalties cannot rest solely on addiction or use without a culpable act. Others contend Congress lacks the power under the Commerce Clause to criminalize mere possession of a firearm, pointing to the 1995 Lopez decision striking down a similar overreach. The jurisdictional hook that the gun once moved in interstate commerce applies to virtually every firearm and does little to cabin federal authority. The government emphasizes uncharged allegations against Hemani involving drug dealing and ties to a terrorist organization, but Amici insists those claims are irrelevant distractions. If provable, they should support separate charges rather than bolstering a vague disarmament statute. In practice, the law often functions as prosecutorial leverage, used selectively when other theories fall short, or to pressure plea deals. A ruling in this case could reshape the rights of millions of state-legal cannabis consumers who also own guns, highlighting a rare alliance between Second Amendment defenders and critics of the war on drugs against what they see as overlapping federal overreach.